I know I already did one like this. It's time for another wine rant.
Shayrah.
I am so angry right now, and I'm going to try not to be overly emotional, but I can't guarantee that I won't get overly emotional about this. A 7-year-old girl who lived in Paradise, California, was beaten to death by her parents, Kevin and Elizabeth Schatz. She was an adopted little girl, which kind of makes me even more angry because the state actually trusted that these people would be able to take care of this child properly. One of the things that makes me really upset is that my partner and I actually tried adoption at one point in time, and it was really hard to find any babies to adopt because most of the parents that were giving their children up for adoption wanted their child to be raised in a Christian home, and we were not that kind of home. And here this couple with 9 children, by the way, a couple of them adopted, they beat one of them to death. Beat her to death. She's only 7 years old. That's almost my daughter's age. My daughter's a year older. I cannot even fathom needing to even strike a child, let alone a child of that age, where they are perfectly capable of reason and perfectly capable of understanding your rules and regulations without corporal punishment. 7-year-old Lydia and 11-year-old Zariah, both adopted, were beaten with 15-inch long plumbing supply tools by their parents. Why? Why were they beat with these objects? Well, there was a book written by a Michael Pearl. It's called To Train Up a Child. When I first saw this news report, I was going, okay, this is really horrible. But then I found out that the parents actually read a book, To Train Up a Child, a book that I've seen in many of my family members' homes and friends' homes who are Christian. And they have used this book as well to justify beating their own children, saying that's what God wants them to do. The worst part of this book is it uses the verse, to spare the rod, spoil the child. Think about this for 1 second. Think about what the rod is, okay? I have actually done a video about this. It was my first video I did at the end of March about the Good Shepherd, when it talked about the rod and staff. Rod in Hebrew is shevet, and the shevet was not used to lead the sheep. It was used to beat and strike the sheep, to correct them, to make them do what the shepherd wanted them to do. And this is very well what the scriptures teach. They teach to beat your children into submission, to use fear and violence to train the child up, which isn't going to help. The child doesn't actually behave themselves. They just live in fear and in complete torture. I would know I lived in one of those homes. I lived in a home where I was beat all the time, almost every day, even when I was a teenager, even when I was 18. And when I was 18, and my dad laid his hands on me one last time, I actually left. I could not take it anymore. But this is what the Bible teaches. It teaches that this is a loving way to get your children to behave. It is not. My daughter is testament to that. All you have to do is explain to them what they need to do. And if they do something that's wrong, you explain it to them again. They're trying to learn. They're children. And these sick people think that beating them is actually going to get them to do what's right. And it is so wrong. 11-year-old Zariah, she managed to make it alive. She managed to survive. She will have more than physical scars from this. But her sister Lydia didn't make it. When are we going to stop and look and see that physical punishment and abuse towards children is wrong? We should not strike our children. They are people. They are human beings. You try to tell them not to be violent. You try to tell them not to go out in the streets and get in fights. And you yourself are inflicting this anger. Now I know a lot of you say, oh, well, I'm doing it with love. You are doing a physical activity that actually creates anger and aggression in you. Psychological studies show this. Punching a pillow doesn't get your aggression out. It actually increases your aggression and your anger. And all you're doing is creating this anger and aggression in yourself. You're not showing your child love. And you're certainly not teaching them any lessons in life. And I know a lot of Christians think, oh, this is a great way to teach your children. Well, then why are majority of the people in prison, percentage-wise, Christian? So what does Michael Pearl consider a rod? Well, he says anything from a tree switch to a spatula. A spatula! I mean, these people are insane. You cannot use these objects to beat your children. And the fact that this is okay in our country, that people are not being prosecuted for using this form of abuse on children, is fucking ridiculous. And it needs to end now. It needs to stop. I remember when I went to my school counselor about what happened with my family and what I was getting done to me, showing the bruises on my body. You want to know what my counselor told me? He told me that because of religious reasons, he cannot stop it. Because it is their religious right to inflict this kind of beating on their children. This was in junior high, by the way. What are you guys going to do about this? I say we do something. I don't know what. I wish I knew. If you guys have any ideas, if you know of any movements, if you know of any causes, please let me know. Tell me down below. But this atrocity needs to end now.